Hi, it's Steve with Coin Stuff I Like, and I'm bringing you part six of my series on Carson City stuff I like. And the I'm going through the PCGS graded silver dollars in my collection. Part three was See the Liberty dollars. Part four and five were the trade dollars, and now we get started with the Morgan dollars, and we'll cover 1878 to 1881 in this episode. Um, what you see there is a picture of one of three uh, Morgan Carson City Morgan dollars that I do not have in MS condition. I've got three that are in the VF30 to XF40 range, and I'll get into those as we go along. But this is one of them. So we finished part five with things sort of falling apart in 1877 as far as the trade dollar. In fact, Congress repealed the trade dollar essentially in February of 1877, and things wound down. There's still mintage in 1887, although it was at Carson City Mint. It was stopped, and in early 1878, February 28th of 1878, the Bland-Allison Act was passed, and in that act, it authorized the circulating legal tender silver dollar. Now, President Rutherford Hayes vetoed that bill because President Hayes was not a bimetallist, meaning he didn't see uh, the need for both gold and silver uh, being used as the anchor of their currency, and was fond of the gold standard. So Rutherford B. Hayes vetoed the bill, but Congress did an override, and he was defeated. And I might also add that President Hayes' Treasury Secretary John Sherman was also gold standard person, which plays into a lot of what we see happen at the Carson City Mint in these years. So prior to that February 28th, they were already working on this design because the bill was in the works. So they they took designs from Morgan and from um, Barber. And Morgan was actually requested to participate. Uh, Morgan was English, had a background at the Royal Mint, and ultimately Morgan's design won, which is you see here. And the, the other thing that was going on at this time is that they passed the bill, but they wanted to get deposits of silver up so they could start minting it. So they created a certificate of deposit notes, so they can give these notes to the depositors, the big mining people, etc. They give the depositors this certificate of deposit, which is essentially they are called silver certificates. And that's where silver certificates got started at that point in time. They made them in $10 through $1,000 denominations, so they could get their silver bullion supplies up. And then the promissory was that we're going to pay you back in $1 silver based on the face of the silver certificate. So finally, in March 13th, 14th, Philadelphia produced the first run of Morgan silver dollar coins. They're the first to release it, and the other mints had to wait a little bit, to get the dies and to deal with some issues that were happening. So it wasn't until mid-April, a month later, that Carson City received its dies for producing Morgan dollar, and the Philadelphia dollars that were minted, at least one of them made its way to some reviewers in Carson City in the press, and they're quite disgusted with it. The design initially, they said this is not the dollar of our daddies. Dollar of our daddies back in those days was the Goldbrecht seated Liberty dollar, the pre-trade dollar. So they're hoping to see something like that, and they saw this and they said, well, the head's too large, the size of the lettering relative to the head is all off, and they said the eagle is a disgrace, and in one article, they says the eagle looks like a cross between a bat and a pelican. So they blamed it on this blarsted foreigner, is what they said. So that was the initial happenings with regards to the Morgan dollar. And as I said, we're going to cover 1878 to 1881. And I'm going to mention, I already mentioned the Treasury Secretary, John Sherman, who was this Treasury Secretary from 1877 to 1881. And as I said, he's on the gold standard. And also there was a lot of animosity between him and the Nevada Senator Jones. So the bottom line is it was thought that Treasury Secretary Sherman really had it out for Carson City Mint. And actually, there's some evidence. The Secretary Sherman would set the price for procuring silver, in other words, the maximum price that you could offer, lower at the Carson City Mint than it did at San Francisco Mint. So, if you're selling silver, you're more likely to take it to San Francisco Mint. And there's other factors as well, such as the mining bigwigs had a refinery in San Francisco, so there's some double dipping there in terms of wanting to send the bullion there. Plus, they're getting a higher price from San Francisco. Plus, the railroad, Central Pacific Railroad, made it less costly to ship to San Francisco than to bring it by railroad 16 miles down the road to Carson City. So there's a lot of shenanigans going on that took silver away from the Comstock lode, which was just over the hill, and sent it, elsewhere. Also, Secretary Sherman would set the budget for Carson City as lower than say San Francisco Mint or other places. Even the Denver Assay Office at one point had a higher budget than Carson City Mint was. And I think it was because, and it's suggested is because Secretary Sherman had ulterior motives and had other reasons to keep Carson City Mint from really reaching its full production. So that was going on in these years. And then once you got past 1881 and Secretary Sherman was replaced, then things changed at the Carson City Mint a bit. Remember, 1877 was the peak of silver production at Comstock lode, and then it started to tail off. So there was some reduction of silver availability coming from Comstock lode, but not to the extent that was experienced at the mint because of lack of budget, lack of support, and a lower offering price there than in San Francisco. So in 1878, April 16th, 1878, Carson City Mint received 10 obverse dies, 10 reverse dies in that morning, and by that afternoon, they produced their first 100 Morgan dollars. To their excitement, because of their competition with San Francisco Mint, they were very happy because they beat San Francisco Mint in production by 1 day. The San Francisco Mint started in April 17th. Another point, if you remember when I was talking about the trade dollars, they stopped production of trade dollars, but Carson City Mint had about 44,000 trade dollars in its vaults and was ordered to melt everything, melt all the trade dollars. And that happened in July of 1878. So they've likely reused that silver after melting the trade dollars to produce some of the 1878 Morgan dollars. So some of your 1878 Morgan dollars, Carson City Morgan dollars, were also 1877 and earlier, or even 1878 Carson City trade dollars before they were melted. And another thing, if you look at the production in 1878, Carson City Mint had about 2/3 of the production, a little less than 2/3 of the production that Philadelphia and San Francisco had produced. It's known that San Francisco had 3 coin presses in operation. That may suggest that Carson City had 2 coin presses in operation during this 1878 period. So when you got to 1879, Carson City Mint only produced Morgan dollars among its silver denominations. In other words, no dimes, nickels, or halves were produced by Carson City Mint. They did produce gold, but Morgans were the only thing that they worked on. But they were told to stop in April, and it was the mint had to lay off people, or at least put them on leave, and they finally were allowed to reopen part-time in August, but then were again told to stop production in October from higher ups, probably as high as the Secretary of Treasury. And they stopped in October and remained shut down, not producing any Morgan dollars through May of 1980. That's about 6 months of being out of operation for the Morgan dollars. Again, a lot of politics and stuff going on that precluded some of the production that was possible from the Carson City Mint. In 1881, the Mint was once again told to stop production in late March, and they remained shut down until November 1st. So that's about 7 months where they're shut down. So the only other thing I want to mention on this slide is that no doubt you've heard of the GSA hoard, the General Services Administration, where these Morgan dollars were in vaults, mostly uncirculated, predominantly uncirculated. Yes, there was, for example, in 1878, of the 1878 Carson City dollars that were in the GSA hoard, 78% of those were listed as uncirculated by the GSA. Once they got out, they found that the circulated ones, there's a number of mint state in there. So, that predominantly uncirculated Morgans. And this really started picking up. There's representation across all these years in the GSA hoard. And I'll go through that as we go through the subsequent parts. But the predominant put away into the vaults started happening in 1880 and proceeded into 1881 through 1885. So we'll get into that. One last thing, and we'll come back to coin press number 1, which is still in operation at the old Carson City Mint. In 1878, the coin press number 1 malfunctioned, the breaking the frame. Fortunately, down the street was the Virginia and Truckee Railroad Maintenance, and their engineers were able to repair the broken press and put it back into action. But from 1878, because of the repairs and limitations, from 1878 until 1893, this press is only used for producing Morgan silver dollars. Now, there were other presses. So during this period, the 1878 to 1893, if you have a Carson City Morgan dollar, there's a chance that it was produced on coin press number 1. But because there's other presses, at least, as I mentioned earlier, at least another one in 1878, there is, it's not a guarantee that it's produced on coin press number 1, but there's a chance. Let's get into some of the specifics, the next 4 coins from the collection. So in 1878, they produced 2,212,000, which was the second highest mintage of the 13 Carson City Morgan dollar mintages. So second highest. They really got into action there. Of these, about Rusty Go in his book, and I'm going to put a link for his 3-volume set. That's where I'm getting a lot of background for this, and it's an incredible 3-volume set on Carson City dollars or Carson City coinage. Rusty Go estimates 125,000 to 150,000 survive, which is about 56 to 68%. PCGS CoinFacts says about 295,000. Now remember, every one of the 13 mintages of Carson City Morgan dollars ended up in the GSA hoard. Now there's 3 years. There's only one sample or one example of a dollar that made it into the GSA hoard. But in this year, about 2.8% made in the GSA hoard. All right, so predominantly they went into circulation. They went out to collectors. They went out to bullion dealers, etc., and were not put into the GSA hoard predominantly of that 212. Or 2,212,000. I mentioned they had 10 obverse dies and 10 reverse dies. They've identified 29 VAM varieties. VAM is die varieties identified for the Morgan dollars. This one is a VAM 11, which is a top 100 VAM. However, as you can see from the holder, it's not attributed. So this one, if I were to send this back, the valuation would bump by about $75. And the cost of sending it back, having it attributed shipping to, from, and reholder it's going to run, just under that $75. Over 50. So it's a marginal bump in valuation by doing that. So that's why it's not attributed, but this is clearly a VAM 11, and I'll show you some pictures. There are 37,256 straight graded at PCGS. Remember, they don't report their details grades. And another note, I'm only giving you the standard designation. There are proof-like and dimples that are also straight graded by PCGS that are not part of this number, so maybe a little bit higher. There are 267 VAM 11s attributed by PCGS. 103 are the same grade, and 87 of them are higher than this. Here's a closer look. Looks like it's 63. Certainly not higher, but it's a pretty coin. It has a little bit of cameo to it. Not that I would even think of sending this back to try for a cameo designation. But it has a little bit. It's a very pleasing coin in hand. And I mentioned this is a VAM 11. VAM 11 is quote unquote lines in the feathers, or lines in the wings, and you can see these die gouges here, which are characteristic of this particular VAM 11, top 11, or top 100 VAM 11. The 1879 is a CAC stickered coin, but is in XF40 condition, because that's what I can afford. They minted 756,000 of them, which is the sixth lowest. It's number 8 of 13 mintages, so sixth lowest mintage. The survival is only about 17,000 to 19,000, so very low survival rate. Only 2 to 2.5% survive out of that mintage. Coinfax estimates 14.9 thousand, which is even lower than 2% of that surviving. GSA, yes, there are some of these in the GSA hoard, or reported in the GSA hoard, 4,123, which represents only 0.5% of this original mintage. So most of these were not put aside in government vaults and were out in circulation. There are 7 VAM varieties. This one is a VAM 7, which is a double 1-8 in the date and tripled stars. There are 6,625 that are straight graded by PCGS. And if you're looking at the CAC grade population, there's only 34 of these graded at XF40, and 531 are graded higher of this of the third-party graded 1879 CCs. Here's what it looks like a little bit close. I like this coin. It's been used, it's been in circulation, but it still has pretty decent details on it, on the devices. You can see some wear here, some wear up in the tips of the feathers, some wear here on the hair over the ear. But it's Carson City. It's 1879. They're not common to have out there, so I'm pretty happy to have it. And as I said, this is a VAM. Now, I know it's a VAM 7 by virtue of the secondary markers. The mint mark placement, mint mark alignment. This little gouge here at the corner of the jaw and neck. The clash here, are pretty characteristic. This die break right here in the G of God, those are all secondary die markers for this VAM. And you can still see a little bit of doubling here, remnant of the tripling. Again, this is an XF40. You can see a little bit of doubling here at the top of the pterygium cap. So it is a VM7. It's pretty easy to see, and then of course you go down to the doubling that's present on the 8 here, a little bump out here, doubling here, doubling up there. So it is a VM7. 1880, you can see that the mintage dropped in 1879. It was only about 1/3 of the mintage that they produced in 1878. In 1879 or in 1880, it dropped even further. Remember all the shenanigans that was going on, that was essentially tying the Carson City Mint's hands from purchasing the silver that was just coming from 16 miles over the hill. So they minted 591,000, which is the 4th lowest of the mintage of Carson City Morgan dollars. In July of 1880, they minted 96,000. Well, a sample got to an assayer, and they found that it was only 0.892 fine. It's supposed to be 0.90 fine, right? 90% silver is 8.92 fine, and so they said, okay, we got to package that whole 96,000 up, and we have to melt them. So that was at 495,000 was the mintage after you subtract that 96,000 from the 591. So the survival rate of this is a bit higher because they had more going into the GSA. So some of these went into the vaults, perhaps because between 1878 and 1879, between Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Carson City, they had enough circulating dollars in the system. So a lot of these went into government vaults, 22 to 27%. 22% if you're going off of this mintage, but once they're melted, that's about 27% went into GSA. The survival is a bit higher than what we saw before. Remember, 79 was very low. This is 146,000, 170,000 per rusty go, which is about 25 to 29% of this mintage here. And the point facts say about 247,000 survive. A lot because of them ending up in the vault. Now, as an aside, most of these that are going into these vaults and sitting there until 1972, most of them remained uncirculated. There are 10 VAM varieties for 1880. This is a VAM 8, 8/7, reverse of 79. It's not a top 100, but it is recognized by PCGS and attributed by PCGS, this particular variety, this particular VAM 8. So 16,671 are straight graded by PCGS. 88 are attributed by PCGS as VAM 8, 8/7, reverse of 79. So 88 are attributed, and of those 88, if this were attributed, there'd be 16 at MS65 and 8 at higher grades of this particular variety. Again, like that top 100 1878, if I sent this in, the value bump, if you look at PCGS price guide, the value bump is only $50. This one isn't even a top 100, so only $50. So this one's not going to go in to get attributed, but nevertheless, it is. So they're starting to look a little bit nicer. This one has a lot of nice luster on it. Details are very nice. This one, as I said, is a 8/7. Here's the remnants, the bottom of the 7. There's a little bump over here. This is a die marker for this particular variety. There's also a little bump over here. You can't really see the 9 that once was there, but there is a little bit of a bump here. But this is the die marker is this line underneath the 8. This line, this little gouge line here, and then some others. They talk about the dimpling, the sort of the rust or what have you that's present here, and this die gouge on the M in America is a marker for this particular VAM. So VAM 8. 8/7, reverse of 79. The last one of this particular part 6 is going to be the 1881, and this is where we start seeing a bigger bump of these being laid away in government vaults. Also, the mintage continued to drop over this 4 years that I've talked about, and every year dropping. And this one, again, shenanigans and so forth. Remember, this one had the really long 7-month closure of Carson City Mint for production of Morgan dollars. So this ends up as the second lowest mintage. And you go, oh wow, this is our second lowest mintage. It's going to be a high value rare coin. Well, because they put a lot of these away, they didn't really circulate, predominantly uncirculated. About 50% of this mintage were put away in government vaults, never circulated. So consequently, 155,000, 195,000 survive to this day. Most of them are actually uncirculated. So that's about 52 to 66% of this mintage. PCGS Coinfax is about 180,000 survive. Now, of note here is that because of the number that are put away and because they're uncirculated, it becomes actually pretty hard to start finding uncirculated. So if you're collecting raw, circulated versions of Carson City Morgan dollars, like I will show you in many parts down the line, it becomes pretty hard to find these in circulated condition. Only about 2 to 3% of this mintage survive in circulated grades. So sort of the flip. You'd think because it's the second lowest mintage are going to be really hard to find, but they're actually put away, and it's actually hard to find circulated versions. There were 6 VAM varieties to produce that mintage, or that were produced from that mintage. This is a VAM 1, which is a normal die, so I'm not going to go through any markers or anything. 26,853 are straight graded by PCGS, and the population of 65s is 5,259 with 2,758 graded higher at PCGS than MS65. So again, pretty nice specimens, mostly uncirculated, only 2 to 3% survive in circulated grades. Here's another image, nice luster in hands, as Kevin from Coins Making Sense says, why does the reverse always look so much better than the obverse? But it does. Nice little die crack in here. So there you have it. Let's get on to looking at these with a video and rotating them around so you can see them obverse and reverse in live video. All right, and here's the first one is the 78 and the 63. See, a little bit of cameo, but not enough. Nice luster, but 63. You saw the close-up. There we go. And then the 79, which was the CAC XF40, and there it is. No real luster left, but good details on the devices. All right, 1880. This is MS65. And you can sort of see the luster there as I rotate it. And here, get back in. And then lastly, the 81, also MS65. And there that one is. Nice luster. All right, there are the video images. So there you have it. The Morgan dollars from Carson City Mint, 1878 to 1881. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you liked it. By the way, let me know if you would send those the 78 VAM 7 and the VAM 11 and the 1880 VAM 8. If you would send those in to PCGS for attribution. Next time we'll cover 1882 through 1885, sort of the boom of the GSA horde, and we'll give you a little bit more details on the Carson City Morgan Dollar series and show you a few more coins from my collection. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Remember, be smart about what you buy, but buy stuff you like. Bye-bye.